FOS TV is brought to you by the Lion's Den. The Den always has been and always will be about enjoying family and friends in an environment steeped in Happy Valley tradition. So come back to the Den, the perfect place to recall old memories while creating new ones.
Mark Brennan of FightOnState.com here for our weekly Joe Paterno press conference, joined this week by Penn State historian Lou Prato. Figured we'd take kind of a historical perspective as Joe Paterno closes in perhaps on another milestone victory, trying to get Eddie Robinson this week.
Yeah, one more, and he was asked about that, one of the first questions asked about it, and they talked about knowing Eddie Robinson, and he remembered Eddie Robinson getting into the coaching at about 24 years old. You know, Joe was what I think his late 30s when he got into coach. You know, when he became the head coach. So you know, he thinks about that type stuff, and Joe is gregarious about that. Let's hope he makes it. I mean, tie Eddie and maybe go ahead and beat him, because that'll make him the number one of both the Division 1A, right. What the old 1A. They have different names for it, the NCAA Bowl Championship and Subdivision. But he'll never make Gallardi, because he may think he's going to make Gallardi. I think Gallardi has 489 or something like that. The Minnesota longtime Division II coach.
Yeah, that may be just a little bit out of range. Joe was weird, a little bit late. Now, when we say late, that he was less early than usual, but he looked good. He didn't have the cane. Seems a little bit tired to me. I'm not sure. You kind of view things from the back of the room, but he did seem like he will. You know, like the season maybe it's catching up to him just a little bit.
Well, I'm in the back of the room, and I can't really hear sometimes, like Joe can't hear sometimes, but that speaker system in there. And then I look up and watch the TV a little, look at the reaction. But, you know, when you say it's a little bit late, the news conference is starting at 12:20 instead of 12:30, so he could make the Big Ten conference call. Yeah. And it started just about, I think, 12:27, 28. And he got there, and it took him right away. But I think what's happening to Joe, after watching all these news conferences over the years, and you know the aging process goes on, is he's also on his medicine. You know, he was asked by somebody, I think asked the question. A couple people asked. They asked a couple questions about his health. Yeah. And he mentioned how he's still a little pain sometimes, and he has to rest a little bit. They have the golf cart out there, and he's not going to tell you a lot. I mean, let's face it, Joe Paterno is going to tell you. You know, and one thing I'll say about Joe Paterno, and you see this all the time, he does not like to take pills. No one likes to take pills. I've hated pills myself, because you don't know what's going to do to your stomach. He's been known for that. And we know he used to like to take a drink of his famous brand of bourbon, and he got off that too. And I don't mean he was a drunkard or anything like that. It was that relaxing like we all do. Relaxing with the media guys sometimes. Mm-hmm. But I think he's off that stuff because the doctor told him to be off it, and the medicine is affecting him because he's not as clear, and he's trying to be. And I thought he was pretty sharp most of the time.
Yeah, absolutely.
And even listened to heard most of the questions. He seemed to be stumbled, and I don't know why, by the Moy question, who Moy was. I mean, you can't read his mind, but
yeah, it's 3 straight press conferences he's had trouble hearing Moy, and I don't know what it. Maybe it's just the way Moy sounds. I don't know, but overall, I thought his answers were pretty good, and I think, you know, unfortunately, it's kind of what, and I'm not going to put words in your mouth. I'll say it from my perspective, but it's kind of what it's boiled down to. Is every week you have to, you know, is Joe on the sideline? How did he look in the press conference? That sort of thing. But he was once again in good spirits. Wasn't joking around quite as much as he had in the past, but there were some in the past couple weeks. There were some jokes in there, but overall, I thought he looked okay.
I thought he looked okay too. You know, knowing Joe as I have over the years, he doesn't like all this attention on himself. People may think that's wrong, but he does. He likes to take attention on the kids on the football game, but he wants to put attention on himself only when he can divert the attention from the criticism of his kids. That's a sign of a lot of good coaches and good baseball managers, the type of that stuff.
Well, if he doesn't want the attention on himself, Lou, there's a real easy way to to prevent that from him. I actually wrote a column that said, you know, seriously, I mean, the only way the focus is not going to be on him is when he retires, because he's into uncharted territory here. We're talking about you know, all these milestone wins and that sort of thing, and his health, and so the story is going to be Joe Paterno until his career's over. And I'm not saying that's right. I'm not saying that's wrong. But if he doesn't want the focus to be on him, there's only one way to get it off him.
Yeah, I understand that, but he's not going to retire until he has to. Okay, we know that, or you know, whether he wants to or not. But what I'm saying is,
or until Urban Meyer's ready to come in and take the job.
That's your story. You broke that story. But the thing about it is, you know, he's been coaching now at one school for a head coach at what? This is 45th year. That's never going to be broken.
No,
It's never. Alonzo Stagg, who had all those years of coaching, who everybody thought was be the patron saint of the aging process, he's being surpassed by Joe because Joe's still coaching at one school on a major college level. Even Amos Alonzo Stagg did different, and the game was much slower back in that era. I mean, when Stagg played and you know they wore leather helmets, or even before helmets were when Stagg played. You know,
back when you played, when there were no helmets.
No, we wore leather helmets. We didn't wear nose guards. That's why you see the beak on here. That's where Joe played there. I mean, and it's so much faster now. I mean, that's the whole thing. And he's still able to keep up to it. Now, whether he keep up enough to it, what people say, that's up to people to make their own judgment. But, I mean, I admire the guy for still coming out, doing it. And I think what I've really seen about these news conferences this year, and maybe a little last year, he's not as angry. He doesn't get as upset at you guys for asking questions. He doesn't snap at you. He more than tolerates now. He's just not going to do that. And no matter what you say, he's not going. He may not talk too much or say I don't understand, but he's not being a wisecrack guy, or he's not overstepping the line. And I think you guys are showing you and the media guys are showing him a lot of respect in what you're doing. You're not asking a nasty presidential news conference type questioning.
Yeah, well, I think the questions that need to be asked are being asked. I mean, he's asked about his health basically every week, but I have to. He's asked about the quarterbacks
how many times can you
every
ask about
week.
The autographs? I mean, you're going to ask.
Yeah. But I mean, I think there's no question, and this is one thing. We'll get to some of the nuts and bolts of the press conference. But one reason I like to have you on is because you do lend a broader perspective on these things. And in my view, there's absolutely no question that he is as at ease and actually seems to be having fun at some of these press conferences. As much as he says he doesn't like them, I think he seems to be enjoying himself, and I don't remember that happening on a consistent basis for years.
I don't think he's enjoyed himself this long since the old days when I was back covering, where he liked the banner. They didn't have the formal news conferences like this. I mean, my day, you go into the dressing room and interview him right there. He has his before he got his shower in there, he's sweating to the players. We didn't have the formal news conference. I'd interview him on the field. He enjoyed that banner one-on-one. And I don't know, when I first came back to State College and started going to these press conferences, I saw a whole different attitude. And of course, it got the more media got more media attention, the internet type stuff. That's even got more outsiders, more younger people.
Stinking internet people.
No, the internet people, the youngsters, the talk shows, all that. I mean, that's why college football's still so popular. I mean, that's keeping it going. But I think Joe's now starting to realize that, hey, why fight it? I mean, I really believe that. Now, if he was, 20 years younger, he might get angry Urban Meyer jumped on people down in Florida. We know that. You mentioned Meyer's name. Every year there's some coach that jumps on the media and gets national headline. It didn't always used to happen.
Yeah, usually it's once a year, Joe. I mean, I remember last year at Alabama, he yelled at some dumb reporter out in the gallery there.
Yeah. He focuses in. That's the way he does. He focuses. But what I found interesting about he just talked briefly about that call on Powell on the 15-yard penalty.
The taunting or whatever. And what a terrible call, by the way.
And no one asked him about how they felt about the replay after the interception that was called back by
Suke. When Suke, it should have been turned over, it wasn't turned over. Yeah.
And then there was apparently another call that could have been turned over. But I mean, if it wasn't for Joe Paterno, I'm not sure we'd have the replay. Remember in this field, he chased the officials after that Iowa game.
Yeah, it's right here. We're actually underneath the goalpost here, and I think this was right where he was running, right here, Lou, right underneath the goalpost.
And 2 weeks before that, or that Michigan game with the bad officiating, and wouldn't you know, we'd have one of our all-time worst officials here at this. We fans think that this guy, definitely Penn State good. We'll make sure we get these type of penalties against them, and we'll change the complexion of the game. Now that's bad. Quit questioning the integrity of the officials. I understand, but Widovit, is that how you pronounce it?
Yeah, Whitvet.
He just seems to have a tendency that, and I'm surprised. One of the reporters, they didn't ask him about whether he would have said something, but just phrased it in the right words. Because if they didn't phrase it in the right words, he might have got up from a chair and banged you in the head.
Yeah, my buddy, Whitvet. The funny thing is, if you Google search Dave Whitvet, every school hates him, except I think Michigan. I think they all hate him. And after that game, I could see where Purdue would probably hate him.
And I think Dave Jones did a real good story about him.
The clown prince of officiating.
Yeah, they did a story on him 3 or 4 years ago that was just classic. I mean, it should be posted in every locker room to find out when you get him. You say, oh, no, not him. But as for the news conference today, that I think the news that he broke was Moy. Basically, he said that when he finally understood what was being asked, basically he said that injury, you're going to be out 3 to 4 weeks, and he indicated, based on what Joe said today, if you read between these words, what he said is he may not be ready until after the Illinois game, which means it'll be the week off, and then
getting into the stretch run in November.
Yeah, so and Moy is missed. There's no doubt about it. I mean, he is the best. I think Brown and has picked up the other good question I thought was asked again was about Curtis Drake. And he said, basically, Drake's not quite here right there. I've heard that Drake is out of his doghouse now. I mean, there was a little bit he was in his doghouse, and I heard that Drake now is now on the varsity.
We've got like 8,000 stories from Joe on Drake, by the way. Okay, it's his leg, it's grades, it's his lifestyle, it's everything. Pick something. Yeah. I mean, pick something, and so you know what? Until he actually gets on the field, I'm not asking any more questions. Right. The weird thing about Drake, I don't know if you noticed this, he warmed up last week. And caught passes and went through everything. And then I'm going through one of our frame games in the second half, and there's Curtis Drake on the sideline in street clothes.
Yeah, I saw that in your video. So what happened?
Maybe he broke a team rule at halftime. Maybe he didn't pay close enough attention. I'm joking about that.
You never know. I mean, I might got into Joe's doghouse. But
no. I'm guessing his leg got sore, and he realized he wasn't going to play. And he's like, I'm not going to have. We were being attacked by bees here. He probably realized I'm not going to keep all this heavy equipment on if I'm not going to play. I'll just get into some street clothes.
But I thought that was the question about Moy was the best question. I mean, that really broke some news. I mean, how many times are you going to talk about the quarterback? We keep asking him, but how many times?
He actually said something I think that made sense for once. He was asked again about the quarterbacks and about Moy, or not Moy. Yeah, now I'm getting into Moy. About McGloin posting better stats, and what Joe said, and I'm paraphrasing here. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. If I can spit that out. If my mouth is broke, can I fix that? But anyway, I think that's the most rational thing I've heard from the coaches about it. Not that they have 2-1s and nobody's a starter and blah, 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 blah. I still contend that if one guy's playing better, why not start him? You're going to get out to a better start. But at least I get where he was coming from with that answer, opposed to this stuff we've been getting from Jay, which to me hasn't made a lot of sense.
But I don't think Joe has the confidence that if McGloin screws up, that Bolden can come in there and be the relief pitcher that McGloin has been.
Right, but what if you took that approach at every position?
Yeah, I know, and he's not, and he's a one quarterback man. So here we are. We're still at the the 8th game of the season, and we're still at quarterback controversy. What I was surprised about is there weren't more questions asked about Northwestern. The question that was asked was about Persa, which figures because Persa almost killed us.
I thought that was a very good question, by the way.
Persa up there almost killed us 2 years ago. Persa wants this game probably more than any other game, probably even more than the Illinois game it was a big rival of Illinois. But Persa, he talked again about how they didn't even recruit Persa. Maybe they wouldn't have recruited him. They weren't recruiting a quarterback that year, and maybe they wouldn't have recruited him even if they had been recruiting a quarterback yet. But he was highly praiseworthy. But he didn't talk about. Someone asked about his defense, how his defense is going to stop, and he sort of glossed over it. You prepare, which of course you're going to do. But I thought there might be just a couple more questions about Northwestern.
Yeah, I'm guessing he will have gotten those on the Big Ten conference call. There were still some things going on with Penn State that people were anxious to know about. But that's kind of been par for the course. There have not been a ton of questions about the opponents. Even Alabama, there were a couple, but not a whole heck of a lot. By the way, it was also one of the shorter press conferences, only like about 24 minutes.
They cut it out because it started late, so they got to run him over. The other thing I think that I took from this press conference was the question about Skurza, right? Skurza. I get pronounced Zerba. Skurza. See, that's why I used to be on radio and television. I couldn't pronounce behind the scenes. Can't pronounce the names.
Your best work has been, you have a face for radio, right?
For writing, yeah. I have a face for writing and radio. Anyhow, the fans are down on him because of dropping a pass. He dropped a short touchdown. It was a great call. Dropped a short touchdown against Purdue. Joe mentioned the Alabama game where in that call in Alabama, he drops that. I don't think they would have won the game, but it could have changed the complexion. The game would have been a lot closer because 1 or 2, 3, 4, or 5 plays changes a game. And then going off sides. Again, he went off sides. And it's like, that hurts the drives. It's bad enough a couple of the other players go offside, but when your tight end does it. And so So, I think we expect to see the backup maybe be the starter this week.
Yeah, you feel terrible for Zerba. I mean, he's going through this whole situation where his uncle was killed, a cop in the line of duty, and you really feel for him. I mean, he's a fifth-year senior, had to miss all of last year with an injury. Clearly, things are not clicking for him. I'm not going to be the guy. I know a lot of people are being very overly critical. Listen, at the end of the first half, he had that big drop. Second half, and he's had all those mistakes, holdings, jumping offside. The beginning of the second half, Hapley was in there and played most of the second half, and I think that's kind of the direction they're going to go until, hopefully Zerba can pull things together, but you understand why it's been tough for him.
You understand why and the other asked if maybe Silas Red is getting tired and
running
him too much. He had 29 or 30 carries, whatever it's been per game the last 3 or 4 games, and he's not as he's not a John Cappelletti type. He's not that type of a built back where he could take a pounding in that and durable. And Joe said yes, he was concerned. He's going to try to get him a little less practice, I think, so he'd take him off. And someone said, well, how are you going to do that? How you didn't say, but how you going to take him off practice a little bit, but.
Well, he was concerned about at that point, Lou. Yeah, he talked about everybody and about how he was worried that some of the offensive linemen are playing a lot of plays because they're also on special teams. Then he specifically said it's not just. He was asked specifically about Red, but then he specifically said he's worried about the entire team. With respect to Red, you have Dukes there. I don't get why you're not giving him a few more carries. Now, hey, I'm a huge Silas Red fan. I think he's a giant upgrade from Evan Royster, but. You're right. I mean, I don't think that's a guy you want to be averaging nearly 30 carries per game in the meat of the Big Ten schedule.
And Dukes, and if the criticism of Dukes by Joe before is he needs to block better. Well, he was in there blocking. I mean, I don't know whether how he's evaluated, and maybe Red, if he can block more, maybe he'll put it. There are 2 different style backs. I mean, even tried to get Green on Saturday one play, and it got blown away, and Beacham's back. So who knows how that's going to come in? But yeah, I think he's realizing that these guys are playing a lot of time, and putting all their players on the special teams wears them out even more. And he's going to try to get rest because we are in that type of schedule where the tiredness is going to break in. The other question that I thought was very interesting was from your good buddy, the nitwit Neil Rudell, where he asked about. He's one of the nitwits, right? On
fumbles.
And fumbles. He asked about, and Joe said fumbles. We know a fumble, and Neil said 15 fumbles, and Joe said, well, it's. The number we've lost. How many have we lost?
6. They've lost 6.
So they've lost almost half of them. I mean, it's fumbles, and Joe didn't seem to be fumbles is a concern. Maybe now he's going to go back and look at this.
Maybe up in the press box he can't see the ball popping out because that is a real issue. And if they had one from Davon Smith on that goofy end around late in the game that he was lucky to recover, and there was also one where Bolden was smashed from behind. Everybody in the stadium saw him about to be hit. And he recovered it.
He recovered his own fumble, right.
Yeah, I mean, these guys are jumping on the ball. But you know what? Those are lucky bounces sometime. And that's something I don't think he should have been poo-pooing that. I mean, that's a legitimate concern.
No, I think maybe it might have alerted him to something. I mean, it might have led, okay, maybe I must look at that. Because I know he respects Neil. And he's a senior guy in that.
Well, if he's counting on Neil Rudell for game planning and input, he's in real trouble.
He's counting on
Mike Irwin's probably next.
Yeah, if you count any of you nitwits over there, right? I mean, Irwin's probably the one you should count on most, right? I mean,
yeah, well, just ask Mike.